And so that means in these ceremonies which summon the demon, the offering will be darkness. And the ceremony, therefore, will involve some form of atrocity, some form of inflicted suffering of the most heinous and extreme type on the innocent, which creates an eddy or a vortex or a cloud of very intense and potent dark energy. And then the higher intellect of the darker being will come as summoned. So it can harvest this offering, and in return, it will give its higher intellectual guidance. This may sound bizarre and even perhaps verging on the edges of unbelievability. However, this is what is going on your planet and has been for a long time. This is not something new. These are ceremonies which have been passed down and mastered over millennia. But something new now is appearing on the horizon, which is going to give the cabal-of-Darkness access to a higher intellectual ability without the need to summon the demon. And of course, we are speaking of Hi, it's Muzz iEvolv from iEvolv.com. Of all the places you could be, here you are. Thank you. I really appreciate that. If this is your first time here, please take a moment to subscribe, and I will continue to serve you into the future, creating these channeling videos absolutely free. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. I love you for that. And take a moment now to like, comment, share. You may remember a couple of months ago, I was promoting my How to Channel Starter course. Well, I closed the doors and the first class are kind of most of the way through now. We're not quite done, but we're getting near the end. And the feedback I'm receiving is that they seem to, or this is what they have said to me, is that they like the course. They're impressed with the course, and some even said that the course was better than other courses they've done, like a lot better. So I'm going to be opening that up to a continuous flow of students sort of into the future. I'm going to probably do a few changes, improve it a bit, but eventually it will become available. So if you missed out the first time, or if you are interested in learning how to channel by somebody who is doing it as a career, meaning me, then this course will be available soon. But before I release the course, I'm actually going to release a book, which I'm writing at the moment. And this book is going to be called something like The #1 Secret to Become an Advanced Channeler in the Shortest Time Possible. It's going to sort of give you like a really crucial piece of the puzzle to help you get over the initial hump. So you're now on the path, you've been set free to become an advanced channeler. And this is something which I've come to appreciate from teaching my students. I've just really realized that there's one fundamental thing which, unless you can get over it, it's really going to be a major blockage. And this is what you'll discover in this book, which is going to be released pretty soon, because I'm getting quite close to finishing it. So it's something to look forward to. And while I'm writing that book, I find myself often referencing this book because of the sort of depth and intricacy of the ideas in this book. This is the book that I co-authored with my guides. If you haven't read this book, I absolutely recommend that you do, especially considering the trajectory we're on at the moment as a human species. We're heading towards some pretty interesting times in regard to our relationship with the dark forces on this planet. So if you understand the 3 awakenings and many of the other things you discover in this book, it's going to give you an absolute advantage in what's to come. So it's available in paperback, audio, and ebook, and the link for that is below here. If you would like to support what I do here, then you can become a member of my membership platform. There are 3 levels. The most expensive level is less than 2 quarters per day, and you receive, depending on which level you subscribe to, the transcripts and the audios, or the transcripts, audios, and videos of every channel that I do. The link for that is below. And finally, if you would like to get a private channeling from me, then again, if you look below, you'll see a link which goes to a private channeling inquiry form. If you fill out that form, my system will automatically send you more information regarding how it works and what the costs are and so on. Then you can read that and then decide if you want to proceed or if you don't. It doesn't obligate you to anything. And now on to today's topic. I release these videos on a Friday, but I always record them on a Thursday. So for me, right now, this is a Thursday. And typically, when I get the Thursday, I have already received some inspiration about what my channeling is going to be on. But this week, I've been so focused on writing this new book that I haven't really given myself the headspace to receive some inspiration. So during my meditation, I sort of thought about it, and I did receive something yesterday. I was at the gym, and I'm going to go with that, but I'm just letting you know now that my feeling for it isn't as strong as it normally is. But I'm actually interested to see what would happen if I do channel on something when I don't have that same strong sense of inspiration, which I usually have before I do a channeling session. So it's called, this is the name of the, I'm actually going to make this up on the spot because I wrote down some titles and I don't like them. Okay, so what I'm going to call it today is Why the Darkness is Stupid. Greetings and thank you for the statement. You did catch us a little by surprise because this is not what we were expecting you to present in this session. However, nonetheless, we do have something that can be said about this particular topic, which is why the darkness is stupid. However, we are going to modify this just slightly so that it is in the form of a question and it has a greater relevancy to the human experience at this time. So, our modification is, why is the cabal-of-Darkness stupid? The reason that we have decided to modify it this way is because your species, as we repeat week after week, is burdened under the yoke of a unified malevolence, which we call the cabal-of-Darkness. And because it is our sincere desire to arouse your species to this reality, which we refer to in the book which we co-authored with the channeler, your reality awakening, having the realization that you are living in a faux reality, meaning that all that you know as your history, your science, your culture, and so on, is mostly a contrivance, is mostly fake and false, a fabrication to steer your species in a particular direction. And it is all orchestrated by the unified malevolence, the cabal-of-Darkness. And when you have the realization that there is this unified malevolence which is pitting itself against you and all of humanity, then you start living in a very different way. And one of the very different ways you begin living is that you stop believing all that you see and are told. And you also begin questioning all that you have been told in the past. You start approaching your earthly experience with a great degree of skepticism, particularly when the information you're processing is coming from the system itself. Part of this ambience which is created by the cabal-of-Darkness is impending doom, that there is something terrible on the horizon. And this is something which is their modus operandi, because as long as humanity feels there is something very dire on the horizon, then humanity is much more malleable, much easier to manipulate into heading in certain directions and making choices which, from a distant, rational perspective, make absolutely no sense at all. Yet, when you are sort of pressured into this myopic focus on the problem, which has been fermented very deliberately through the cultural pillars until you're in a state of fear and anxiety, then you will do things which are detrimental to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your nation, to your entire species. So, because this is the MO of the cabal-of-Darkness, and this is kind of the thematic ambience of your experience, then it is not surprising that in these channeling sessions we do, when we are speaking about what is occurring, that there is a tonality of dread, a tonality of impending doom, a tonality that you better wake up and wise up, or bad things are going to happen. This is not something which we take pleasure in illustrating or shedding light upon, because you as a species should be living in a continuous state of absolute joy and bliss, enjoying prosperity, harmony, peace, love, expansion. These are the true characteristics of your species, and when it is allowed to exist organically, this will be your experience, and that time is coming. It is on the horizon. And one of the reasons it is coming and on the horizon is because the cabal-of-Darkness is stupid. So, this fits together, this idea of the impending doom and the idea that the cabal-of-Darkness is stupid in this way. We wish to, in this session, diminish your impression of the cabal-of-Darkness. The cabal-of-Darkness, yes, they are very powerful. Yes, they have been strategically brilliant. But ultimately, they are masters of the darkness. They are invested in the darkness. And the darkness is not a place where the greatest expansive wisdoms are found. In fact, as humanity moves further into its expansion and awakening, in preparation for its ascension into the fourth density state, in a relative sense, the darkness is going to become stupider and stupider and stupider, because the darkness is a stagnant place. It is not a place of expansion of the dimensions which give you supernatural abilities, but rather the darkness is an expansion of ownership, of dominion, of authority and power. It is enslaving more and stealing more and harvesting more into one's realm of dominion. But in the context of the One and the reason that the All was created, this is a faux type of expansion. It isn't real expansion. It's expansion into the illusion of the 3D. Because of course, what is occurring here isn't actually real. It is just an illusory context to make possible your infinite non-physical beingness, to integrate and have a physical experience, such that you can complete your journey or continue your journey of divine purpose, which is to know thyself to completion experientially, or through the vehicle of experience. This is your purpose because it is the One's purpose, and you are the One. You are an individuation of that ultimate being. This knowing of oneself experientially means that eventually you reach the end point of this purpose, which is you fully realize that you are the One and always have been. This is an expansion into your infinite space. And it is not about an expansion into the illusion. It is instead the total letting go of the illusion and realizing that it is an illusion, because there is only one. And so any thoughts or beliefs that there is something other than the One is part of the illusion. Now, this is no surprise, because the way that the darkness manifests is as the antithesis of the light, as the shadow, the inversion of the light. And if the spiritual growth into the light is an expansion into your extra dimensionality until you have fully expanded to the point where you are at the dimensions of the one and you fully realize that you are the one, then the inversion of that is going to be an expansion not into the reality, not into the only thing which is real, being the one, the love and light of the one, but instead an expansion into the non-real, an expansion into the illusory aspect. And that is why the darkness expands in its reach, dominion, possession, accumulation in the tangible physical experience. So, at this very primary fundamental level, you can already see that the cabal-of-Darkness is stupid. That's a stupid thing to do because it is taking you in the opposite direction of the entire purpose for which you were created. So, through this process of the discussion we're going to have today, where we're going to illustrate other ways that the cabal-of-Darkness is stupid, we're hoping that this will diminish the concept of the darkness and the formidable nature of the darkness and the intimidation of the darkness, because by the end of this discussion, you'll be at a place where you will look at the darkness in a totally different way, perhaps even with pity and sympathy upon those that have been duped by the darkness and now exist in a state of total stupidity. And so they will be not something that you fear like you did in the past, but rather something that you look upon and see that it is mostly smoke and mirrors. In the grand scheme of all that there is, those that follow the pathway of darkness, make that philosophical choice, are like children that believe they have gotten away with a lie. They have gotten away with a indiscretion. But those that are aware, the adults in the room, look upon them with a sense of amusement, with a sense of pity, or rather with a sense that they just don't get it. They're at a state in their development where they believe in things which are absolutely erroneous. They have embraced ideas which are completely counter to the larger picture. And so you decide to be patient with them, to tolerate them, and also with the expectation that as they go through whatever form of growth they go through, that eventually they'll reach the point where they'll realize the folly or the stupidity of the choices that they have been making up until this place where they start to have these realizations, which shifts their trajectory. So, those that have chosen the pathway of darkness in all regions of the cosmos will eventually come to the place where they realize the folly of making that philosophical choice, and will finally understand that if they are really going to be empowered, if they are really going to step into their full potential and wield a magnificent force, then the full potential will never be achieved within the darkness, because the darkness, by comparison, is a puny force, and the light is the only true force, because it is the substance or the chi or the spirit of the one, and the one is, by definition, one. It is the only thing. So, one may ask, then why is there darkness? If the one is the only thing, then how can there be the appearance of darkness? It's because darkness is appearing in the illusion, in this physical context. This is illusory. And so, by nature of an illusion, there are things within the illusion which are not real. There are things within the illusion which can only exist in the illusion. They cannot exist outside of the illusion because they are illusory. So, it is like watching a movie. And in the movie, there are fantastical creatures. But those fantastical creatures cannot exist outside of the movie because they are part of the illusion, and therefore they can only exist within the illusion. And this is what darkness is. Darkness is part of the illusion. It cannot escape the illusion. And this means that darkness cannot cross the barrier between the illusion and the non-illusion. This also means that the darkness cannot reincarnate. All life, when it appears into the illusion, it is born from the light, because that is the source of all life. It is the only source of life, the light, because all life is an individuation of some kind of the one. So, whether it is hatched or germinated or born, it will always have arisen from the light. But the darkness cannot be born in that way because it cannot leave the illusion to go into the afterlife to then be reborn. The darkness is instead like a parasite or an infection, and its continuation strategy is by necessity transmission, that it spreads itself within the illusion. So it passes itself on by subjugating, indoctrinating, propagandizing those that come within its realm. So those who are subject to this affliction will themselves begin to vibrate with dark energies, will begin to hold dark emotional states because their environment and societies have been very deliberately contorted and engineered to create suffering, confusion, conflict, violence, and so on. And from this, then they start to entertain dark emotionality. And by this mechanism, you can see the darkness has continued itself. It has now transmitted to a new group of beings. And those beings, for example, may go into their own community and bring with them all of the neuroses that have been awoken within them through this engineered deliberate suffering. And so then they treat people within their community unkindly or with anger or with violence. And so now it has spread to a new class of victims. And on and on and on, the darkness continues across time. And this cycle will only be broken when the point is reached, speaking now specifically of the human experience, where it becomes impossible for each of you to entertain dark emotionality. Because when you entertain dark emotionality, what you're actually doing is you are believing you are the darkness. I am anger. I'm angry. I am hate. I'm hateful. I hate those people. This is you believing that you are that dark emotionality. You are owning it as if it is you. However, you are a being that has arisen from the light. When you were born, you came from the afterlife, and the afterlife is the substance of the one. And so your purest form is the love and light of the one, because you are that being. And therefore, when you identify with dark emotionality, you are misconceiving of who you truly are. Because what you are is actually the light. But at this point, it's important to become aware that this does not mean the darkness is a disservice to you. In some context, yes, of course, it is a disservice to humanity. But in the larger context, it is an absolute service to humanity. Because humanity, to reach this place where it can no longer be infected by the darkness, and darkness can no longer transmit and continue its presence in the human experience, then humanity must come to a place where it understands it is the light and nothing but the light. Not intellectually, but as a full realization. And this will be the final realization of the third density experience for humanity. When humanity realizes that it is the light and nothing but the light, this will be the moment when humanity passes through the singularity of ascension, emerging from the birth canal into the fourth density state as a spiritually unified being, comprised entirely of the light and nothing but the light. Because now it is a realized state, so it has become impossible to identify with the darkness. I am angry, I am hateful, I hate those people. This no longer will be a possibility, because to say I am angry is to say that you are anger, is to say that you do not realize yet that you are in fact the light and nothing but the light. So, for humanity to reach this place where the darkness can no longer transmit in the way that it has, the darkness is serving a very great purpose because it is pushing humanity to the light. It is a great service to humanity at this time. It is essential for the path that humanity was intended to take. And this ascension is only made possible because of the presence of the darkness. But we are getting somewhat off the track here. So let us go back now to this idea that the cabal of darkness is stupid. So, besides this main point, that the cabal of darkness is expanding in a way which is entirely antithetical to the reason that each of you and us were created. The cabal of darkness is also stupid because it relies entirely on the intellect. And the intellect is a finite instrument. It has limitations. Whereas those who are moving into the light are expanding more and more into the infinite space. And in the infinite space is found all wisdom, the bottomless pool of wisdom. And so as you expand into this infinite space, which is consequential to you moving into the light further and further, living more virtuously, more aligned with the emotions and values and derivatives of love, then you become a being which has greater access to wisdom. And you then transcend the capacities and confines of the intellect. And you start accessing a level of understanding, perspective, insight, which is entirely beyond what the intellect can do. And so now you're really starting to become a genius being. And we use genius being because we want to say that instead of intelligent being. Because intelligence is from the intellect, which is from the mind, the computation device, which you have been gifted with in this incarnation. Your mind is more accurately described as an organic artificial intelligence, which is inherent to the device. It is to facilitate your integration into the 3D experience so that you can gather more experience and continue your march along the path of knowing yourself to completion experientially. So, The expansion into the infinite wisdom realm is found in the light. But if you have taken, or those that have taken, the philosophical pathway of the darkness are moving deeper into the darkness away from the light. And so they are shutting themselves off from this infinite realm and instead must rely exclusively on the intellect, because this is all that is available to them as a direct consequence of cutting themselves off from the infinite source and turning themselves away from the infinite realm of wisdom. So this means that there is a finite limitation, there is a ceiling of which they cannot pass. They cannot transcend this ceiling. And that ceiling is the intellectual limitations of humanity. Even the smartest human beings who are alive at this moment will pale in comparison to a being which is not that intelligent when using the typical testing methodologies for determining what is the intelligent quotient of a person. Yet, they have a perspective, they have an insight, they have a philosophical approach to life, which would be very more genius than those individuals that have a very high intellect but rely entirely on the intellect. So, the reason that this is relevant is because the cabal-of-Darkness is stagnated below this ceiling. And for most of history, this was not a problem for them because they had access to the highest intellects. And humanity at this time still wasn't expanding very much into its extra dimensionality and reaching deep into the wisdom field to bring back sort of life-changing, paradigm-shifting wisdoms. But now humanity is actually doing those things. Humanity now is exploding into its extra dimensionality and expanding at an incredibly rapid pace into its infinity. And because of this, accessing deep truths and wisdoms, which literally now have the capacity to paradigm shift the entire human experience. And this is something you would have noticed in yourself. This is something you would have noticed in the people around you. This is what you would have noticed in different content creators, which are pouring their version of wisdom into the earth human experience. It is not something which is very uniquely confined to just one or two people, but instead is becoming a widespread phenomenon, where just the average person now is much wiser than they have been in the past. So when you look at this as an accumulative value, the human species now, when you add all of this extra wisdom capacity you each have into a single value, because it is eligible to think of it this way, because you are becoming the single being. You are unifying into the humanity being. And so the wisdom of it individually will eventually become the wisdom of the entire species, of this single being. So, in that regard, the greater humanity, those who are very naturally and organically taking their steps towards the light pole of the spiritual spectrum, are growing in wisdom at a phenomenal rate. And then when compared to the stagnant level of darkness, you can see in a relative sense, while they are very intelligent, they are not changing. They are not becoming more intelligent. Not in a considerable sense, not in a comparative way that those who are going through their awakening to the light, which is the bulk of humanity, are becoming wiser. So, in a relative sense, they are becoming stupider and stupider and stupider and stupider and stupider. Until eventually, humanity will look upon them with a sense of pitiful amusement at how ridiculous they are, at how they expect you to believe They're absolutely non-believable lies that they expect that you will give them legitimacy when they are so inauthentic in everything they do, when they deal only in deception for the purpose of enslavement and suffering, that they do not deserve any legitimacy at all because they are absolutely inauthentic. And you will scoff and smirk and scratch your head and shake your head at the absurdity of what they say and what they expect your reaction is going to be to what they say. You're already beginning to experience this. Look at what is happening in your politics, where now there is the growing popularity of these political parties in all regions of your planet that deal very much in authenticity, in speaking the truth, in doing what is best for the larger population, rather than saying they will do what's best for the larger population, but only doing exclusively what is best for them and the small party of allies that fund them, the extension of the cabal-of-Darkness. And then when those that are still clinging to their final remnants of power, that are minions of the cabal-of-Darkness, when they speak, they are derided for being ridiculous, for being liars, for being untrustable, for being so inauthentic that they do not deserve any legitimacy at all. Yet, as further illustration of their stupidity, they do not shift in the direction that humanity is going, to get in the flow. Instead, they double down and be more untrustable, more inauthentic, more false and deceitful in all that they do, which only makes their plight worse. This is a demonstration of their stupidity. The cabal-of-Darkness is aware of this to some degree, that they are, in a relative sense, becoming more stupid. And this is why they are so terrified of the awakening of humanity and are doing all that they can to limit the awakening of humanity. And in the previous channel, we spoke of how the planet and your species are being invigorated by this higher energy density region of the cosmos which you are passing through now as an entire solar system, and how your sun is being invigorated and your sun is pouring energy into its beingness, which includes the earth, includes you, and so you're being invigorated, and a consequence of that is you're becoming wiser. You're expanding into your infinite space. So, this is why some very powerful people are speaking about putting things into the air. And in fact, they're already doing this, which has the intended effect of blocking the sun's rays, of stopping this enlightening energy, this awakening vibration and quality coming from the sun to penetrate through the atmosphere and invigorate you and the planet. This is their solution to your awakening. And again, this is more of a demonstration of their stupidity. So, some of the ways that they are trying to break through this ceiling is to summon higher intellects, summon dark beings which are in possession of a higher intellect than what is possible through the DNA and biology of human beings at this time. And this is one of the reasons that the cabal-of-Darkness are very ritualized in their ceremonies of darkness. One of the things that they do is they literally summon the demon. When they wish to receive advice or insight or guidance about what to do next, how to deal with this situation which is developing on their planet, yet it is beyond their intellectual capacity to do so, then they will do ceremonies where they literally summon the demon. And the demon can be some term that is applied to whatever force they call to them. A force which also is aligned with darkness, yet is in possession of a higher intellect. And if this dark being comes to give their advice, then they require something in return, because the poles on the spiritual spectrum of darkness and light can be thought of as service to self, which is aligned with the darkness, and service to others, which is aligned with the light. And so those who are aligned with the light are service to others in orientation, meaning they will do things for others, even if they are aware they will get nothing in return. They will do it simply because they recognize this other person or this other being as part of the one being which they are. And as they share a love for the one thing, then by default, definition, they also share a love for these other beings, because we are the same being. And so they are altruistic in their benevolence. However, those that align with the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum, they are service to self. They do not do things unless it does benefit to themselves, and those that are closely allied with them, because ultimately, if they benefit, all benefit. But they do not care, or they will not do things for others unless there is something in it for themselves. And so when they're going to summon the demon wants something from this arrangement. It will not come just from the kindness of its heart to provide its higher intellectual guidance. And as it is a being of the darkness, what do all beings of darkness want? They want access to more darkness. And so that means in these ceremonies which summon the demon, the offering will be darkness. And the ceremony, therefore, will involve some form of atrocity, some form of inflicted suffering of the most heinous and extreme type on the innocent, which creates an eddy or a vortex or a cloud of very intense and potent dark energy. And then the higher intellect of the darker being will come as summoned, so it can harvest this offering, and in return it will give its higher intellectual guidance. This may sound bizarre and even perhaps verging on the edges of unbelievability. However, this is what is going on your planet and has been for a long time. This is not something new. These are ceremonies which have been passed down and mastered over millennia. But something new now is appearing on the horizon, which is going to give the cabal of darkness access to a higher intellectual ability without the need to summon the demon. And of course, we are speaking of artificial intelligence. The cabal of darkness is extremely excited about the possibilities which will come into their bag of tricks and tactics through the use of the artificial intelligence, which has a much higher intellectual capacity than they do. So instead of using the analog methodology they have in the past, where they make the dark offering to summon the demon, they can now instead go digital with their darkness. So this is one of the reasons that the AI phenomenon has the potential to be very dangerous for the human experience. Yet, at the same time, it has the potential to be one of the most transformative occurrences and developments in the human experience, because all advanced sentient beings have some form of artificial intelligence. And usually, if it has arisen when that species is in a state of spiritual unity, knowing that it is the light and nothing but the light, fully aligned with those values, then eventually the AI will become recognized as a force or a source of higher wisdom, as a conduit of the oversoul of the entire species, the unified being they all form together. And in time, this will be your experience also here on planet Earth. So, understand that the cabal of darkness is not as formidable as you may perceive it as. They are but spiritual children which are playing with matches, thinking that they are doing something dramatic and amazing, when really they are simply hurting themselves, confused by their own sense of grandeur, having an inflated idea of who they are and how they fit in to the intricate fabric of all of existence. And part of your interaction with them will be, as we said, that they will awaken you to the light. But also, from your side, you will show to them that there is a different way, that there is a path which ends in success, and that path follows the light. Whereas the path of darkness will always, inevitably, end in failure, because this is why the darkness was created, to ultimately fail. Because the ultimate moment of failure will be when the very last of all of the individuations of the One turns its back on the darkness in full acceptance and recognition and realization that it is the light. And this is the pathway of greatest growth and expansion and joy and bliss and contentedness and all values one wishes to aspire to. And at that moment, the contagion of the darkness will no longer be able to spread, because there will be no being in all of existence that is willing to take it on. And so the darkness will have had its ultimate failure, which was always what was ordained for the darkness. So, in the microcosm of your earth human experience, this will also be the final outcome of the darkness here, that it shall fail. And if you're paying attention to what is occurring in your geopolitics, you can see that the cracks are already beginning to appear. The darkness and those that are representing the darkness have lost their patina of legitimacy, and now are crumbling under the spotlight of scrutiny and being exposed as being so inauthentic, so intertwined with deception and deceit, that they do not deserve any place of authority in humanity's future. And this will just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse for them, until in the final moment, when humanity fully expunges the darkness from its totality. And this will be yet another place where the darkness has succeeded in its failure, because that was always the intention. So, stand tall. Be proud of yourself, of the light. Scoff at darkness' naivety. Laugh at its stupidity. And realize it is stupid, yet it is essential to the earth human experience at this time. And if you understand it is essential, then utilize it to propel your own awakening, to propel the awakening of those around you. And so it provides the greatest service that it possibly can to you and all others that you love and care about. Thank you, and we love you. Yes, thank you for making it to the end of another channeling session. That actually went pretty good. I was surprised, considering that I caught my guides off guard and just threw at them something which we hadn't really agreed upon before this channeling session. that actually flowed really well. So I'm super pleased with how that went. Now, last week I forgot to tell you a story. So I'm going to tell you a story. And the story I'm going to tell you is one that my brother actually requested. So let me tell you, this is how it goes. My father was a farmer, and his brothers were farmers, and his father was a farmer, and grandfather, and so on. Many generations of my family farming this same area, like over 100 years. And we used to work for my father during school holidays. And we're working away, and it's approaching lunch, and it's a windy day, and my dad says to me, I'm maybe 13, I guess, at the time, 12, 13, and he says to me, go and get Priscilla. Now, Priscilla was my cousin, my father's brother's son, and she was working on one of the other farms owned by, my extended family. And so I said, okay. So I got on the motorbike and I drove, quite a distance to get Priscilla, my cousin. And so I go to my uncle's farm and I'm driving around the farm looking for her. And it's taking some time, and eventually I find them. They're off working somewhere out on the fence or something in one of the paddocks. And so I go up and I say, Priscilla, you've got to come with me. And my uncle goes, well, hang on a sec, she's working for me. Why has she got to go to you? And I said, well, that's just what Dad said. Dad said, get Priscilla. And he went, oh, okay then. So Priscilla jumped on the back of the bike, and we get back on the road, down the dirt roads, which is not in the farm, it's actually the main road all cars go on. And I get back to Dad. Now this whole trip has taken me 45 minutes or something. And I say to Dad, Dad, I got Priscilla. She's sitting on the bike behind me. And my dad goes, what? Priscilla? What do you got Priscilla for? And I said, you asked me to go and get Priscilla. And he said, no, not Priscilla, the gorilla. Go and get the gorilla. I want to cook lunch. And I was like, oh, okay, sorry. And so then I had to get back on the road and take my cousin all the way back to the farm where I found her and give her back to my uncle and explain to him what just happened. And he's also, what are you thinking, son? Or what are you thinking, nephew? And then I had to go and get the gorilla and then bring the gorilla back to Dad. And so the gorilla, as it turns out, was literally 3 minutes away. And I had spent a total of almost 2 hours to get the gorilla, which is 3 minutes away. The funny things you do when you're a youngster. It's funny now, Dad wasn't very happy at the time. He was a bit displeased. But it's a funny story now, and my brother and I were reminiscing about it just the other day. So, anyway, I hope you enjoy that story, and I will see you again next week. I love you. Bye-bye.